There are many disability issues that I would like to cover. There are for students in public school districts, and then there are employee issues for employees with disabilities in school districts. For this reason, I'm going to break this up into two videos. This first one, I'm going to talk about students with disabilities and the laws surrounding that. There are two major laws that come into play when we're talking about making sure that students with disabilities benefit from their educational experience. The older one is called Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, shorthand Section 504. And it basically deals with those students that can succeed in the general education program if they get a reasonable accommodation. This might be a student with a vision issue that can't do the type of tests where you fill in bubbles. Instead, they need to be able to circle the answer. Or it may be an individual, but they don't need anything done to the test. They can take the same test as everyone else in the classroom. Or it may be a student with a cognitive issue that they just need to have a little more time to do the test, or a quiet room to do the test, or have someone read the test to them. Again, the test is the exact same test that everyone else in the classroom is taking. They just have to have a reasonable accommodation in order to be put on an equal footing. The other law, which you've probably heard more of, is called the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act, or the IDEA. It's a section of a larger law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, that was first passed in 1990. The IDEA covers the other children with disabilities, those that it's just not reasonable to believe that they can fulfill all the requirements at the same chronological age as their peers. They need what's called an IEP, an individualized education plan. And that means that if they are in a 7th grade math class, it is just not educationally reasonable to believe that they can do the same level math as the other kids in the class, but they can benefit from math instruction. And so in their individual education plan, their IEP, that modifications are made by the special ed instructors to make sure that they benefit from being at school from that math class. So that's how the IDEA and Section 504 differ. Both of these are very, very statute intensive. And the statute, or not the statute, it stays, but the policies and regulations implementing the statutes are constantly changing as the federal government comes and makes those changes. In fact, it has changed so recently that the IDEA is now actually the IDEIA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act. Is it essentially the same act? Yes, but with enough tweaks that school districts have to stay on top of it, and this is very difficult to do. They need to rely very much on their general counsel, on their board counsel, in order to do this. And it's even hard for a lot of attorneys to keep up to every single minute change that can occur. But if the school districts aren't up with every minute change, then they can get into major trouble with the state and with the federal government and lose funding and end up having folks from the state monitoring what they're doing. So it is actually better to spend your money the first at the front and make sure that you have good communication with your board counsel in order to make sure that your programs and your policies are up to date. Because it's really, really easy to remain in compliance with both Section 504 and the IDEA if you stay on top of it. There have been complaints that parents weren't invited to the IEP, that records were disposed of inappropriately such that outside individuals could identify IEPs with the name of the students. Things that really should not happen if you are in constant contact with your board counsel. So that ends this video regarding disabilities, students with disabilities. The next video will be employees with disabilities. Stay tuned.